ActionSA and two other parties in the opposition grouping in Joburg, the IFP and the ACDP, are calling on the Democratic Alliance to rethink its current decision to refuse to work with the Patriotic Alliance there. The Patriotic Alliance says it will vote against the Joburg Mayor, Al-Jamal Stapela Ahmad. But if the DA agreed to work with the Patriotic Alliance and the other parties, they would probably have enough votes to form a new government there. In other words, to take over Joburg again. Micheal Beaumont is the chair of ActionSA. Michael, good afternoon to you. Why do you want the DA to consider working with the Patriotic Alliance?
Well, I think it's actually more than what we want, but I think certainly the Democratic Alliance has committed itself nationally to a moonshot pact initiative, the premise of which is that it must prevent ANC and EFF from forming government in 2024, and is predicated on the idea of political parties with divergent views coming together to collaborate in that space. And yet here we have an actual ANC and EFF government in Johannesburg through a proxy mayor of Stapela Ahmad, who continues to govern a very complex city with massive challenges and governs it very poorly. And at this moment, so soon after this announcement, the Democratic Alliance appears to be snatching defeat from the jaws of victory once again. And I think rather than going into the usual cycles of verbal attacks, this is an encouragement to urge the Democratic Alliance to do the right thing by the residents of Joburg and the right thing by those who are looking for an alternative option in 2024.
So, Michael, I hear all of that, and I think in a way you're right. If the DA wanted to be consistent about what it says it wants to do, then maybe it would be the right course. But there's a lot of history here. So the Democratic Alliance did work with the Patriotic Alliance. They were part of a coalition in Joburg. The PA then crossed the floor. So it left the DA-led coalition and went to the ANC and the EFF. Then Gayton McKenzie decided he wants to be mayor, and now he wants to come back again. So let me put it to you like this. Is Gayton McKenzie and the Patriotic Alliance, are they people whom anyone can trust?
Look, certainly there's been a very difficult past, and I don't think for one moment we should try to whitewash that or try and change that image at all. I would suggest as well that we previously had a deal with the majority of parties in this council that the Democratic Alliance then shot down. So it's been a difficult couple of years, and no one should feel that more than the residents of Johannesburg. But if we're going to allow those kind of past historical baggage to prevent us from going forward in this municipality or for the 2024 context, then it's going to be very difficult to pull this together. I think everyone in a professional working environment has to work with people that is a challenge to work with them. And there's no question that we've got to do it in a political environment too for the greater good.
Okay, but isn't there a lesson in life and politics here? Can you trust someone who will agree to work with you by betraying someone else? Isn't the lesson in this that if someone is prepared to betray someone else, in the end, they're prepared to betray you too? And isn't that the politics lesson that we need to learn about coalitions?
Look, absolutely. The word betrayal, though, obviously deals with a particular kind of, personal kind of decision-making process, where I think in many occasions where these things have fallen apart has been in decision-making around how parties are accommodated in the coalition, the direction of those coalitions, and how they find expression in the leadership structures of that municipal government. And I think some of the times it has fallen apart where, for example, the Patriotic Alliance left was avoidable, and things could have been done to prevent that. But certainly, I think it's got to be the way forward that political parties can put behind that past baggage and can find a way to move forward, because the residents of Johannesburg at that local level, but also people who seek change nationally, require that of all of us. And I think that was so much of what was expressed by the DA leader in his announcement of the Moonshot Pact, and yet now has gone out the window just 2 weeks later.
So, again, I hear all of that, but I think this is absolutely about the Patriotic Alliance. Let me explain why I say that, Michael. I don't expect you and I to agree on this, but I do want to test the argument as far as it can go. So the point is that Gayton McKenzie and Kenny Kunene from the Patriotic Alliance have been completely upfront and said they will go with whoever gives them the best deal. Now, if Gayton McKenzie wants to be mayor, he says that it's not the end of the world if he isn't. So here's the thing. If they now come and work with you, how long do you think that would be before they went and now worked with the ANC again? And need I remind you of what happened in Nelson Mandela Bay when they went back and forth so many times?
Yeah, certainly. And I think for not one moment will I try and be a spokesperson for the Patriotic Alliance or to speak to what they have done in past coalition arrangements. I think from an ActionSA standpoint, we are looking at a worst-case scenario right now, which is a mayor from a two-seat party that has no coherent vision for the city of Johannesburg and has been controlled by the ANC and EFF ahead of an all-important 2024 provincial election. And we are saying that is a situation which we cannot expect Joburg residents to continue to pay for that compromise. And this individual needs to be removed. And our mandate is to try and put in place an alternative that is better, even if it is imperfect, and even if it is going to have its own challenges. We've got to put in place something that's better and gives us the opportunity to address the challenges facing the residents of Joburg.
But isn't there a longer-term thing here that may just be worth taking a moment and looking at, which is that a lot of the instability in Nelson Mandela Bay and now in Joburg has been caused by the Patriotic Alliance, and it's been caused because they've been rewarded for their behavior. Now, I'm not going to speak for Gayton McKenzie. Your green and his green are very similar, but I think you're right not to speak for him. The point I'm trying to get to is that this will keep happening, and there will be other parties like the Patriotic Alliance who will do exactly the same thing if their, I'll use the phrase, bad behavior is rewarded. And that's what's being done here. You and other parties, and I understand why you want to be in power. There's no point in being in politics if you don't want to be in power in Joburg. So you want to do that. But this means that the Patriotic Alliance can keep finding itself a better and a better and a better deal by essentially turning its back whenever it feels like it. And I think if we reward that in our politics, all we're doing is providing incentives for more parties, more actors like the Patriotic Alliance to enter it and to cause more chaos. And isn't that worth avoiding, even at the short-term cost, as high as you think it may be, of meaning that the situation in Joburg doesn't change?
The problem I have with that particular approach that you put down there is that it places the residents on the back burner. It's all about political parties saying who must be rewarded and who must be punished. And the residents don't seem to feature very prominently in that kind of thesis, where we need to be talking about which agenda is going to best serve the residents of Johannesburg. There's no question there have been these problems in the past. There's no question that there's been too much of a transactional approach to coalition governments in Johannesburg and Tshwane. But certainly I think the best safeguard has to be the residents themselves, who I think have expressed themselves to the Patriotic Alliance and said to them, we think you belong in that other camp. And that is why the Patriotic Alliance has approached our group of parties not once, but twice, Stephen, in order to establish a coalition away from the ANC. And on the past two occasions, it's been the Democratic Alliance that has walked away and asked the residents to pay that price. And I think that is a problem from where we come.
So, I mean, I think that's a very strong critique of my thesis, where are the residents in this, and I accept that fully. I just think that over time, we're going to have a lot more unstable government if we allow parties to do this. And that, then, is going to be bad for residents, too.
Yeah, without any question. I think the instability of the last 18 months has been shocking. I think there's no question it impacts residents. And I think a lot of people are looking at this saying, you know, how would we want to import this into our national politics next year? And that's something that we all need to own as political parties. I think there's no question that coalitions have gone through a storming phase. And as we approach 2024, there is this understanding that stability is going to be required. We need to see our way through to a term of office. And we need to show South Africans that the inevitability of coalitions doesn't need to be a terrifying one, but can be one that brings hope.
Micheal Beaumont, Chair of ActionSA, do appreciate the time and the engagement. Thank you very much indeed.